So which former PM took office without being elected by the public? Was it Harold Macmillan, James Callaghan or John Major? The answer is all three.
Oh, that's right, Harold Macmillan, James Callaghan, John Major all became Prime Minister without being elected by the public. Callaghan lost when he eventually went to the country in '79, beaten by the Thatch, and the two Tories, Macmillan and Major, both won. You're watching The Right Stuff with Gail Porter, David Grant and special guest Misha Paris. Still to come, are one-night stands worse for women than men? 0207 173 5555 is the number for your thoughts and for your theories. But first, shall Gordon Brown go to the polls? It's exactly a year to the day since he became Prime Minister after Tony Blair stood down. And that, of course, after winning Labour an historic 3 general elections in a row. And I guess that's part of the problem. A great deal of you seem to feel cheated. You voted for a government led by one guy, but have ended up with a government led by someone else. And if today's by-election is anything to go by, you really don't like it. I mean, Labour beaten into 5th place in Henley by the BNP and losing the deposit along the way. I mean, that's pretty grim. So, should Gordon do the decent thing and go to the country, hold a general election he'll almost certainly lose? I mean, all the opinion polls put the Tories miles ahead. Or should he cling on till the bitter end, another 2 years or so, suffering further humiliations along the way and perhaps leaving the door open for more BNP victories? It all started off so well for him, didn't it? His handling of last summer's floods and the terror attack at Glasgow Airport enhanced his leadership within weeks of taking power. Then he dithered over over the general election that never was, bottled it, and it's been a downhill run of bad luck ever since. Northern Rock, credit crunch, 10p income tax, misery upon misery upon misery. And so dire are things for Brown, even Tory leader David Cameron's calling on his party to go easy on him. So, should he do the decent thing and go to the country, or cling on till the bitter end, like an unwanted dangleberry? Eric hit the streets to find out.
He should go to the polls and just see if that's the person that the people want.
No, I think he should wait until things improve so that he's giving a better chance, as long as the Tories don't get in.
He should have gone when he had the chance, and now he should have time to show that he can change things around. And I believe that he can.
Yes, he should go to the polls. It's about time, you know, we elect a Prime Minister.
No, give him a chance. He's just got in. 1 year's not enough.
I think he should, because it's up to the public to vote, you know, vote or not for him. But I don't think that... He's not great a personality, has he? I don't think... There's not much there, is there?
Kind of, well, I think in one sense, I think he might be rather cheered by those after the disasters of last night. There's honour and there's duty and the interests of the party. And the decent thing would be to go to the country, wouldn't it, David?
I don't necessarily think so. I'll tell you why, Matthew. Because I think the British way is that the leader of the party with the majority in Parliament becomes Prime Minister. Yeah. Now, since the war, since the end of the Second World War, there have been 12 Prime Ministers. 6 of them became Prime Minister as a result of becoming leader of the party.
We don't vote for a Prime Minister like a president, no.
We don't vote in the way they do in America. And also remember, people argue that arguably our greatest Prime Minister of the last century, Churchill,
we did vote in a Labour led by one guy, and now it's led by someone else.
But that, again, is the case whenever a leader takes over. And that's happened. Half the Prime Ministers since the war have been there. Now, I would say of Gordon Brown, he's in a parlour state at the moment because, you know, people are against him. Certainly the media is currently against him. He has not had a great...
They can scent blood, can't they?
They can. He's not had a great first year, and the unions might start flexing their muscles. Looks like they're going to as well.
Worse.
I tell you what, how he does in this next year is going to determine... If he's in the same situation this time next year, even though he's got a year left, he might as well go to the polls. What Prime Ministers do, and the only weapon that Prime Ministers have really, is the ability to decide when they stand the best chance of winning. And you've got to remember, a year before, 1982, when Margaret Thatcher won by a landslide, the Conservatives lost a majority in a by-election, and she was 15 points behind in the polls. And then the following year, she held it, and people were going, go to the country, it's only going to get worse. Nobody's ever going to vote for you again.
I bet he rused the day he didn't go to the country in October, November of last year, because I think he would have had a decent chance then. Misha, do you think he should do the decent thing or carry on bumbling through?
I really think that, you know, we're in a time now where image is all about image. And unfortunately, people judge you on your image and your character, and that's really what's sad.
But his character right? His character would be, as 10 years of Chancellor, arguably the finest Chancellor of certainly the last 50 years, possibly longer.
So his character, not character,
is flawless.
Image and personality.
Yes.
Well, what I mean, he doesn't have that charismatic kind of leadership style that people like. Somehow people are convinced that when you're charismatic, that makes you a good leader.
There was that. Do you remember the story about him doing these early morning phone calls to people saying, "Oh, hello, you've written in to complain. I just thought I'd give you a tinkle," and this Tory guy, stood in the House of Commons, you know, as a joke during question time. So, what is the Prime Minister going to do about these early morning nuisance phone calls to people's homes? And instead of coming up with a witty riposte like Tony Blair did, Gordon Brown just came up, "Oh, you know, this is a place for serious debate," and it was kind of, "Oh, come on, you know, fight, do something."
I mean, I just said, look, not everyone's born with that charismatic streak, but I don't think that's the reason why...
Not everyone's born to be a leader.
No, exactly. But I do think he has leadership qualities, but I think he needs to be given a little bit more time to show that he can turn this around. I mean, it would be really sad if you just throw the guy out and don't give him a chance.
I would say with his current track record, if it carries on like this, and I think Dave is absolutely right about the unions, it could just get worse and worse and worse, and the long-term damage to Labour and to the country is almost not worth thinking about. The decent thing, as I said at the beginning, the decent thing to do, Gail, might be to go to the polls earlier and fall on his sword.
I would say go to the polls. I think, well, inflation's it's hit 3.3% in June
Cost
this
of living
year.
is about 3 times
That's the highest since 1992. The poor are getting poorer, the rich are getting richer. We were discussing this yesterday. And I'm worried, you know, the BNP have just beaten them in a by-election. What if we're encouraging people, you know, people are getting so fed up with Labour that they're going to go to the BNP. You know, I just don't know. I think it's going to cause more problems in the future. I think you should give us a chance to have a look at the state of the country and see if we can, well, let the people decide. I think enough's enough.
Do you think that the longer it goes on, the worse it'll be?
I think it's going to get worse. I don't think it's going to get any better.
Yeah, but what do you think is going to change if he gets taken out? What do you reckon
Well, it
is
can't
going to
get any
happen?
worse, can it?
No, but my point is, what's the alternative? What is the alternative?
Well,
it has been worse.
Do you know what I mean?
You know, don't forget the 80s.
No, I know, exactly.
It was worse. It was
but, you know, we
significantly
voted in a Labour government and we're now poorer than we ever have been.
No, we're not poorer than we ever have been.
Well, actually, there's a survey today, David, there's a survey out today which says that most people feel they are worse off than their parents.
Most people feel that, but Matthew, you've got to remember, when there were 3 million unemployed in this country, we were worse off then. And that's a fact. It's not about how we feel.
I would like to say where we're going to be in 10 years' time, though. Let's throw it open to you. Should Gordon Brown go to the polls? David, should Gordon Brown go to the polls? David, yes, thanks, OK. Should Gordon Brown go to the polls? Let's find out what people say.
We're going to go straight to Patricia on line 2.